welcome to, I guess this is our final keynote speech, right? Our third keynote speech. I am Jason Slyman. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Applied English. If you were here for the morning, you heard me speak earlier. And it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Nigel P. Daly. What's the P stand for?
Peter.
Peter, okay. Okay, those are my two guesses. A seasoned educator and applied linguistics researcher, over 25 years of experience in Taiwan, currently working at TAITRA's International Trade Institute, holding a PhD in teaching English as a second language or to speakers of other languages. Dr. Daly has dedicated his career to enhancing international communication for non-native English speakers, specializing in both academic and business communication. Most importantly for us here today, he's an advocate for integrating generative AI into language learning. And Dr. Daly emphasizes the importance of AI fluency as a vital career skill. He's very active in publishing generative AI in education papers and posts on LinkedIn and Substack, and that's really where the action is today for this fast evolving field, if you didn't know that already. His innovative approach combines cognitive science, kinesthetic learning, and gamification to foster engaging, effective learning environments. Or am I wrong?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. And I'm excited to hear him today. So, Nigel, the floor is yours. Welcome him.
Very generous introduction. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. So today, you're going to be hearing from me, and I'm not an academic, even though I have apparently a doctor in front of my name. I do have a PhD. I'm not an academic. I'm not a professor at a university. So I come from the business space. And so that's what I think I'll be trying to contribute today, is a little bit of information and trends from the business world and the business training world. Okay, so my students at ITI tend to be after they finished graduating from university. We do on-the-job training, so we get professionals who come in for training. We also get students who graduated, can't find a job, come to us to try to improve their skills. So that's basically where I'm coming from, just to give a bit of a context that'll frame what I'm talking about today, which is managerial AI skill stacking. It's a fancy name, but it's an idea of a skill stack or a skill set that a lot of students are going to be needing after they graduate from college and go into the workplace. So I'll be talking about some trends and speculations from the business world. And I do want to emphasize speculation. I'm going to probably remind you about this a few times. A lot of my research comes from business sources, which we should all be skeptical about. But it's interesting because it's they often will take ideas and extrapolate what they think will turn into good business ends or goals. All right, so this is what I'll be talking about. A lot of information, statistics that I will talk about today do come from business sources. We get the McKinseys, the consulting companies, and the Microsofts, and a lot of these companies have serious vested interests in the research that they do and publish. But still, I think it's interesting, and we don't get this kind of speculation from academia just because academics are much more conservative. And good, there's a good reason for that. It should be the case. So my abstract, if you read it, is going to generally give you an idea of what I'm talking about, but not specifically everything. So I'm going to deviate from some of that. So again, I'll be talking about trends from the business world. Advances in AI, give you a little bit of an update for some of you who don't know too much about what's going on in the LLM world these days and what are some of the new products and services, because it's changing so fast. I keep up with this as much as I can, but like every week there's a new model, a new update, a new revolutionary change, right? It's really hard to keep up. So if you're still thinking about ChatGPT from 2024, you are way behind the times. So I'm going to try and give you a bit of an update. I want to also talk about this concept of frontier firm and also agent bosses. And this is where the idea of managerial AI skills is going to come into play. And so what that means is workers in the future are basically going to have to manage not just themselves and their knowledge, but they're going to be managing AI agents. They may not even be managers, but they're going to start to assume a managerial role. And there's a certain skill set that goes with that. And that's what I'm trying to talk to you about today. So these are topics I'll be getting at. There's basically 5 parts to this. I'll be talking about certain crisis that is looming in many parts of the world, certainly North America, maybe in Taiwan, could be coming soon to Taiwan, and also an update on tools, and then a question about humans. How much relevance will a lot of humans have in the workplace? Again, please bear in mind, I'm talking about the workplace, I'm not talking about high school, I'm not talking about university, I'm talking about in the workplace. Okay, so I'm trying to extrapolate from that and talk about skills that probably our students should learn, or at least be aware of. Frontier firms, agent bosses, what's an agent boss? What are their skills and implications for education? I won't be talking too much about implications for education, I'm afraid. But I'm hoping I'll be having enough time at the end to have some questions and some feedback and comments and debate, whatever it may be. So the impending crisis. Well, I think we all know enough about AI. And when I say AI today, I'm only talking about generative AI. Narrow AI has been mentioned before, but really that's not the same as predictive AI. That's not the same as algorithmic AI. These are all different AIs. So the technologies that most of us know and probably use are what we call generative AI. So that's when I say AI today, that's what I mean. We probably know that AI can make work faster. You can come up with ideas, you can write faster, productivity. This seems to be the most obvious bonus or benefit for AI for most students, teachers, workers. Now that should relate and translate into profits, business profits for companies. There's a lag on this. So there's a lot of expectation in 2023, 2024, very few companies are seeing any kind of profitability, and there's still a big debate about when that's going to happen. It'll happen at some point. We don't know exactly when. But we do know the statistics that we've seen from academic reports and business reports. Increases of productivity, maybe 73%, 56% of CEOs, they think that their employees who are using AI are more effective or efficient. Daily Gen AI users, so people who use this every day are saving a lot of time, maybe 1 day a week. And employees in AI-forward companies, AI-forward companies is a trendy term, just like frontier firm will become a trendy term. They are handling increased workloads. Okay, so it's all about productivity. Again, a lot of these statistics are coming from McKinsey, Microsoft, PwC. These are all consultants for big companies. A few days ago, there was a really interesting article on Substack by Brian Merchant. He writes a lot about technology and the effects of technology on labor. I guess he's not really a Marxist, but he's got some inclinations toward that, but he's focused on technology. And so the title of his piece a few days ago was AI Jobs Crisis is Here Now. The AI Jobs Crisis is coming, is already here. Now he gave some interesting examples in that paper. Duolingo, so people here who are language educators, you know Duolingo, and if you're not an educator, you may have used it yourself to learn languages. They replaced writers and translators with generative AI. They found that the quality is not better, it's just much more productive. They could create 150 courses in 1 year. That would take maybe 12 years before. So the increase in speed and productivity for generating text and educational materials is astounding. But they're releasing a lot of their staff. Mark Zuckerberg, Meta's code in just 12 to 18 months. Most of its code is going to be written by AI agents. Not random, I mean, there's going to be like good coders who are overseeing a lot of agents, right? So one good coder will take the place of maybe 5 or 10 coders. Artists, illustrators, journalists, all being displaced. We've heard news of this. We may have been affected ourselves, or we know people who are affected. Voice actors, for example, have been on strike for 9 months already. And of course, in the US, we have Elon Musk taking over the government and downsizing, the Doge. All of these are trends. And these are not just flash-in-the-pan trends. They're going to continue. So Merchant has identified this as really not being an issue of tech. It's about power. It's about management strategy to cut labor. And so he gave this was an article from Thompson not too long ago, just maybe a couple of weeks ago, in the Atlantic. And so in this graph, it says, if you can't read it, total unemployment minus recent graduate unemployment. What does this mean? There's 0. This means that graduates from university, the employment is going up and up and up. So the unemployment rate for young entry-level workers is going up. This is what happens when firms hire 1 employee with ChatGPT instead of 3 junior staff. So this is all part of the trend, this downsizing trend. What about Taiwan? Well, Taiwan has really low unemployment. It's like 3%. And it's the lowest level that it's been in 25 years. In fact, because I work in TAITRA, and so we deal with a lot of CEOs and companies, it's actually really hard for a lot of companies in Taiwan to find staff. And you'll see like a lot of signs on stores and businesses like looking for staff. And so it's a challenge. However, there is really high youth unemployment. This is for graduates after they finish university. It's like 11%. Now, this is not because of tech yet, but it's going to happen, I think. Now, the reasons given for this is that there's a skills mismatch. Okay, so companies who are looking for entry-level staff are not getting the skills that they want from their applicants, if they're youth applicants. So lacking practical skills and experience needed in high-demand industries, especially tech. Tech is huge in Taiwan, right? So the hardware industry, whether it's semi, whatever part of the supply chain, they're not just looking for engineers. They are looking for all kinds of staff. But even those staff that don't need technical skills are hard to find. So what's happening now with the technology? So here's a little bit of an overview. For those of you who are not paying too much attention, ChatGPT came out in 2022. We all know that, 3.5, then 4 last year is pretty impressive. And then things really started to get interesting at the end of 2024. So the end of 2024 to now 2025, this is where there's an interesting jump. So if you're not aware of it, well, we went, of course, from text generation into image generation, which was pretty cool, and coding. And then still same thing here, multimodality. And so ChatGPT is really powerful, not necessarily because it has the best benchmarks, but it's multimodal. You can input images. It can create images. It can look at video. It can go online. It can do all kinds of things. And that's the convergence. That's where technology is going. And that's where the power of these machines, these AIs, is going to continue to develop towards AGI, maybe? But it's an important component in its evolution. But what happened in late 2024 was this concept of reasoning. And so ChatGPT released 01, or 01, as a reasoning model. And then all it basically did was like slow down and take things step by step. So it just takes longer to process the request and generate an answer and check the answer. So these reasoning LLMs are a huge thing. And then the increase in memory. So ChatGPT, Gemini, they've increased huge memory windows, context length, which is really useful, right? So now if you're working with ChatGPT or Gemini, it can remember a lot of stuff that happened before. That makes it useful. So these are a couple of important advances. Now 2025 is supposed to be the year of agentic AI. Has anybody used any AI agents? Joe?
Opera.
Opera.
No, sorry, not Opera. The operator.
Operator.
ChatGPT.
You got that much money you're paying for $200 a month?
No, it was on the. Yeah, I did for 1 month, and that's what I did.
because that operator is available to the $200 a month users, not the plus users. I'm a plus user.
It's not worth it, by the way.
It's not. Okay, that's a lot of money. But for those who are using the free version or the plus version for $20 a month, you can still access agents. Anybody use any of these agents from Gemini or ChatGPT? You maybe have, but you don't realize they're agents. Deep research. So if anybody's played around with deep research on it, she said, yeah, it's good, right? Yeah, so it'll do things autonomously, right? Take maybe, how long? How long does it take to generate a report?
From the research?
Yeah.
Usually like 5 to 10 minutes, I think.
5 to 10 minutes at least, right? ChatGPT or Gemini?
ChatGPT Plus.
ChatGPT Plus, yeah. So ChatGPT Plus apparently has the best deep research functionality, but Gemini has a pretty good version too, and it's for free. So you can use that as well. I think you can get it on ChatGPT for free. I think they made that available like last week. It's like every week there is something new that's happening and emerging that you can use if you want to. But those are examples of agentic AI. Now those are like really basic examples. Things are going to get much more interesting. So this morning, Jason and CJ were talking about creating GPTs. And it's not going to be much longer where we can create agents who will be doing that, which should be much better quality. Because I think GPT, using the baseline LLM, has a lot of issues, right? Which makes it really a struggle for consistency and accuracy. But agentic AI is what's going to be, I think, a big turning point this year. Well, you might be thinking, well, not for me, but for business. Yeah. Okay, so lots of tech advantage. It's hard to come up stay up with the news. So like, I have this like AI news fatigue, but every week I'm looking at certain people like Matt Wolf on YouTube and other people who are always giving updates. And I'm always following it because there's always something happening. But it's tiring. It's a lot. Okay, so 2025. What we should be paying attention to if you're interested in uses for teaching or students learning, it's going to be reasoning and agentic AI. So with reasoning LLMs, they're designed for complex multi-step problem solving. And so most of you, if you're good at using LLMs, you'll say like, do this step by step or think through things step by step. In regular LLMs, we have to prompt using this kind of command. So we'll do like step 1, step 2, step 3 more faithfully. When you deal with reasoning LLMs, in fact, you don't need to do that. And some people say that it's even counterproductive to do that because that's what they will do. They will break it down, break the request down into logical steps, think through it, and then compare it and choose what they think is the best way to get the best answer. So this is what reasoning is doing. Okay, so chain of thought is doing that already intuitively. It can handle multi-layered analysis and decision-making, understands and adapts to context. This was done by fine-tuning. It's kind of interesting. So these large language models were taught how to reason. So using fine-tuning, they were taught how to reason. By the way, these are some. DeepSeek R1 is what really revolutionized things a couple of months ago because it was free, kind of open source. And so then very quickly, ChatGPT, a few days later, is like, okay, we'll give you our free reasoning LLM. So like, again, there's this like real fast ping pong match in competition between companies and technologies. And Grok 3. So very soon, everybody was coming out with their reasoning mode, right, including Grok. Now reasoning, so early on with 4.0, with this reasoning, I said, okay, do some research for me, do this, and this was a check. And I thought this was kind of cute. You can't really see it here. I'm not sure I can see it either. But this is what it's thinking, apparently, so we can follow the reasoning process. It breaks things down. If you ever use these, it's kind of interesting to see how they do it. Now, what I asked it to do was to give me some resources, format it in APA, and double check the resources. I thought this was really cute. Verifying and updating AI references for academic talk. This is for this talk. So I thought it was good. I'm selecting credible academic sources like Archive, MIT, Stanford for verifying informed consent and adoption stages. It seems essential to maintain the integrity of the references. That's interesting. Okay, now I mention that because Anthropic did a study a couple of months ago, and what they found out was that when these LLM models are actually reasoning, what they say they're doing is not necessarily what they're doing. It was what they were trained to say. Because it mimics how people think. That doesn't mean that's what they're doing. There's a bit of a gap between what the LLM is actually doing and then what it's saying. So you can read that later on if you want that. This is the study by Anthropic. Still, they're better. They're better than LLMs because they're more accurate. So what about these agents, AI agents? Autonomous software system that perceives its environment, makes decisions, and takes actions to achieve specific goals. often with the ability to learn and adapt over time. Okay, so that's the agentic AI. So deep research is an example of that. So it's an autonomous agent performing complex multi-step research independently. And it'll come up with a report, and it'll verify, try to verify sources, etc. Now, ChatGPT has this function called tasks. So you can program it to do a task. So like every week, for example, I ask ChatGPT to send me updates on all research relating to education and AI in the past week. And then Sunday morning, it'll give me an email giving me the latest research in academic research in education and AI. So that's an example of a task. It's kind of autonomous, but it's not agentic AI. But you get the idea. There's an overlap there, but it's not quite the same as something like deep research. Other agents, Microsoft has Copilot, OpenAI has Operator, right, that's the big one. Google, deep research as well. Notebook LLM, if you haven't used that for research, very impressive. Commercial examples, customer support agents. Those are some companies. And what they can do is handle inquiries, process refunds, update account information, even solve technical support issues automatically. Another example is e-commerce agents, so like on Amazon or Shopify. What they will do is automate the order processing. They can track shipments, send reminders about abandoned carts, offer personalized shopping suggestions, all that stuff automatically. All right, so there's a lot of technology acceleration. That's interesting. Gemini is talking to me. Why are you doing that? Let's get rid of this. Okay, so a few weeks ago, these two authors, so Narayanan and Kapoor, they wrote a book last year called AI Snake Oil. Really interesting. If you're interested in understanding more about AI, the different kinds of AI, it's a really good book to read. Or you can go to my Substack and you can look at my review if you want. I wrote a review. But they sent some waves rippling a few weeks ago with a paper they released called AI as a Normal Technology. Okay, normal technology. And the idea there, normal technology is infrastructural. It's a little bit like electricity. So it's a general purpose tool or a general purpose technology. Now, the issue with a lot of normal technologies like electricity is it often takes quite a few years for the uptake to happen and for it to expand at scale. I mean, right now, we see AI used in a lot of companies that are data intensive, or departments that are data intensive. But it could take quite a few more years. But, okay, I just mentioned that. But Ethan Mollick, and again, if you're an educator and don't know who he is, you really should if you're interested in AI and educational application. He gives updates every week, like every day. I don't know, every day he's on all kinds of forums. He's on Blue Sky, he's on LinkedIn, he's on Substack. And so he's talking a lot about the experiments he runs and also the educational applications of a lot of this AI stuff. But he made a point which I agree with. Now, and I think Narayanan and Kapoor are a little bit mistaken comparing AI or generative AI with normal technologies like electricity. I think the uptake is going to be a lot faster. And Mollick thinks that it's the agentic AI that's going to be the flip switch for that to really accelerate the popularity and the development at scale of AI. Because you don't really need the city to build an infrastructure for plumbing or like electricity. People can use it, and if it's easy to use, and if it can do things for you like an agent, that's all you need. So I think the agent part is going to be a very important turning point in this evolution of generative AI. What about Taiwan companies, CEOs? So 88% of Taiwanese CEOs, according to Microsoft, Work Trend Index. 2025 is critical for reevaluating core strategies and operations, which is pretty close to global averages, about 82%, but even more in Taiwan. Agentic AI systems is to be the major trend for 2025. 82% of companies want to add agents as digital team members within the next 12 to 18 months. Again, these are studies that focused on Taiwanese businesses and CEOs. 58% are already in the process of fully automating departmental or teamwork business processes using agents. Which is interesting, because that's substantially higher than 46%, the global average. Are Taiwanese CEOs overly optimistic? So 8 to 10% of Taiwanese enterprises had clear AI applications. 90% are still trying to figure things out, exploring. 31% already reported seeing AI-driven revenue growth. 60% expected generative AI to enhance profitability in the coming year. Okay, 31% to 60% in 1 year, is that going to happen? Seems a bit optimistic. But these are ideas in the minds of CEOs. So, if I were a really tech-savvy student, how would I employ a lot of these technologies that I've mentioned today? If I had to write a report. Now, before I tell you what I would do, I probably wouldn't do it. But I'll just give you an example about different stages of a workflow, like a report workflow, where students could use different kinds of AI for different functions. Now, I'll preface all of this by saying, as I should, I don't advocate students just using AI to get all their answers. Right? So I encourage my students to use AI a lot. But I want to try to make sure that they are interacting as a human at different stages. So there's a planning stage where the human has to think a little bit about it, create the prompt. There's the prompting stage where you have to ask, get the answer, and investigate to see, is it accurate? Does it make sense? Not make sense? Revise it and reiterate. So that's the human component, the human-AI interaction. We have to try to, as educators, insist on that. Try to find some way, some traces, some proof and evidence that is actually happening. I don't have the answers. I don't know the answer to that. But it's an important concept that should be in our minds if we're asking students to create things like a report. So if I gave a student a report assignment, if they had to do an industry report on a certain industry, for example, well, if I give them the assignment with requirements and a certain kind of rubric, like what I expect them to do, they can decode that brief by talking to something like ChatGPT or Gemini 2.5. I say, okay, so this is my assignment. It's for this professor. It's for this course. It should be this long. Give me some ideas about how I can organize or structure this report. Now, once I have an idea about that, maybe I want to do some research. So I could use, again, maybe Gemini Deep Research or ChatGPT Deep Research to do some research. Once I have an idea about the different parts of the report, the structure, and what parts require research. And then that's the first stage, because the sources that deep research gives you are mostly things like McKinsey and Microsoft, which can be good, but they're not credible for academic. They're not really academically very credible, because a lot of that good stuff are behind paywalls. And so we can use other AI that can go through some of these paywalls. Like, we've heard a lot about GPTs today. There's a lot of GPTs that are created by companies like Consensus and other research companies that'll help the user get academic research. But even those GPTs aren't going to have access to all the good research. So it's like stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 is kind of the footwork. People who really care about doing the right research, then you're going to have to go down that rabbit hole and start finding the good papers, the well-cited papers, what papers that the well-cited papers cite, etc. But these AI tools will get them started. Now, once you've got all those PDFs, the student now can put them all into Notebook LLM. Now, Notebook LLM is brilliant. because you put all that stuff into a notebook LLM, all those files, it's not going to create stuff. It only looks at the content that you put into it in the database. It doesn't hallucinate. And you can ask it to ask questions. It'll give you questions. It'll tell you where that information comes from. It'll show exactly in the sources where it comes from. And they can also have an audio. They can make a podcast out of this too. If they want to really try to understand concepts at a certain level while they're in this research, writing, and understanding phase, they can do that. And then once they get a lot of the ideas, research and ideas, they have a basic idea of what they're doing with their report, they can stress test. They can get feedback, critical feedback, from something like ChatGPT o3, a reasoning model. Or, more playful, Grok. Grok likes to be critical. That's the personality of Grok. It has a place. And then we can make more of a structured outline. We can draft it, whatever series of drafts and combination of human and AI. Create the visuals and graphics using Midjourney, ChatGPT, or other AIs, and Canva. Integrity check, using something like Claude to double check to make sure that our references are real and not plagiarizing or whatever it is. Make a slide deck if I have to do a presentation. And even rehearse. Right? So using a slide deck, I can use tools within PowerPoint. If I use PowerPoint, use Copilot. Those are all AI tools. I can use ChatGPT 4.0 voice mode, if I want to practice my presentation. Or if I'm anticipating tough questions from my teacher, I can get a list of questions. They can ask me the questions. I can respond. So these are all tools that a savvy AI student can use to not cheat, but to do a good learning, a really thorough learning investigation. But they're different. So one is agentic. So for a certain function, they'll have an idea, what are the useful tools? What are the suitable tools? Reasoning LLMs for that part. Again, reasoning LLMs for an integrity check. And different tools will have their different strengths. Right? So this is part of what I'm getting at with the agent boss of the future. Now we can see it today with a very tech-savvy student. What they're doing is they are managing a tool set like a manager would manage subordinates or workers. So will humans be relevant? Okay. Well, a few days ago, actually it was early February, so Bill Gates was on Jimmy Fallon. I can't play this for some reason. It's okay. Not that interesting. But Jimmy Fallon at some point said, are humans still going to be necessary? And he looks a little bit shocked, so you can guess the answer. So Bill Gates said, no, for most things, humans won't be necessary. In the same interview, Bill Gates said, 2-day work week. A lot of people are going to have 2-day work weeks. What does this mean, right? But humans are still going to be important. So there are 3 limits that AI has and will continue to have. So Daniel Susskind, now this is real research, identified 3 limits. The first is what he called general equilibrium limits, which means that humans actually are still more efficient for some tasks. So for example, human dispatchers managing unexpected disruptions. So AI is still pretty bad at handling unexpected cases. So there's going to be a need. Preference limits. Well, some people just prefer human interaction. Right, that's going to be a fact. That's not going to change. Moral limits. Some tasks need humans' moral judgment. Which means that for certain tasks, we need to have a human who is responsible. So, a few days ago, Cassie Kozyrkov, if you don't know who she is, she's pretty cool. She was Google's first, chief decision scientist. Now she left Google and she's a big, I won't say guru. She's not a guru. She is a specialist. And she has her own consulting company now, so she also has a vested interest in a lot of what she publishes, but she knows what she's talking about. But she posted this a few days ago. Now, Cursor is a coding platform. And so you can use LLMs to actually talk to the coding platform to create code for programs. Now what Cursor did a few days ago was they used a customer support person named Sam, who turned out not to be a person, but turned out to be a hallucinating LLM. So they got themselves into some hot water, which is funny. So Cassie liked the irony of that, right? So Cassie is saying they should know better, right? So my point being here, that if there's an LLM that is giving faulty advice or hallucinating for something important, maybe like customer service, who's to blame for that? Well, we can't blame the AI, it's going to be the company. It's a problem for the company. But there are certain tasks that humans need to be responsible for, and we kind of expect that. So what's this frontier firm and agent boss? So predictions for 2028, 2030, if you haven't heard this, it's kind of like what people are saying about Taiwan and China for 2027. It's kind of like the deadline. There's something that's going to happen before then. Now, in the tech world, the idea here is between 2028 and 2030, big disruptions are going to happen. They haven't happened yet. And so here are some predictions. Again, take things with a little bit of a grain of salt, because they do come from companies who have a bit of a vested interest to make people worried. 47% of companies are expected to change 30% of their work in 2025. This was actually at the end, just a few months ago this came out. By 2030, this comes from the WEF, the World Economic Foundation, 86% of businesses, AI tech will transform their operations by 2030. 39% of current skills outdated. 85% of employers upskilling or reskilling a top priority. 170 million new jobs by 2030 for those who adapt, right, who have the right skill set. I mentioned these statistics because I think if you're concerned about your students, or your children for that matter, then what does that mean? I mean, nobody really knows what the future is going to look like in 2, 3, 5, let alone 10 years. One thing we can all agree on, though, it's going to be really different than what's happening today and what the expectations are today. So this frontier firm concept comes from Microsoft. It comes from their The year of the frontier firm is born, 2025. That's the name of their report. So these are AI first, or AI enhanced, or AI forward companies. And so they're the early adopters of AI at scale. Intelligence on tap, human agent teams. A new role for everybody, they're saying, is going to be the agent boss. Structured around on-demand intelligence. So what are the expectations here? The expectations with these agent bosses, or agents, or AI technology, is that companies will be able to expand at scale, operate with agility, and quickly respond to change, and generate value faster. And the idea is to become more productive, more innovative, and to make employees more optimistic. So the employees at frontier firms, this was a survey, again done by Microsoft, for or on employees at these frontier firms. So they reported higher rates of thriving, feel more able to take on more work, more optimistic about the future, less likely to fear AI taking their jobs. Yeah, that's Microsoft. So why is this role emerging, this frontier firm role emerging? Well, the technology, right, it's making it conceptually possible to think about these things. So frontier firms are within the top percent of firms who are productive. They are more productive than 90% of other firms. Twice as likely to adapt advanced digital technologies, generative AI, multi-agent systems. So 68% of these firms report a strong increase in task complexity. So when AI tools are introduced, then it's not making things easier, it's making things more complicated. But the results are also going to be more sophisticated. but it's not just a quick fix, right? Not just AI is solving all the problems. But it reduces routine execution time, so it takes longer. And there's more of a cognitive and managerial burden on the planning, the oversight, ethical review, and alignment. Okay, so it's, again, they're not quick fixes. Microsoft and LinkedIn report, 75% of knowledge workers use AI. Only 31% have adapted their workflows to use it effectively. Again, the message is pretty clear. Most of us are experiencing it ourselves. Like, this is all pretty interesting stuff, and it's kind of useful, but haven't quite figured out how to use it effectively yet. Right? And that's still going to take some time. So again, Cassie Kozakroff, again, she sent this out a few days ago. She's been on my LinkedIn feed the last few days. But it's interesting because this is a memo that she has sent to her company employees. Now, she calls her company an AI first company. This is her AI first attitude. And I think it's interesting to give you a bit of a sense, like, what are the tech people really thinking about, and what are their expectations for their employees, if they are a tech company, or they're tech friendly, optimistic, perhaps. So, tool use. How could I do this better? There's no such thing as cheating. There's no such thing as cheating at your job. We talk a lot about cheating in school and education. Now, for jobs, it's quite different.
Yeah.
Right? And so, what we consider plagiarism, nobody really cares about in business, right? It's like, can you do the job? Does it make sense? Is it effective? That's all that counts.
Does it not create trouble I have to deal with later?
What's that?
Does it not create trouble that I have to deal with later as a manager?
Right.
That's what they're concerned with.
Yeah, something like that, I think. So these excerpts from my company-wide memo. So these are some excerpts from her memo. So AI is not a replacement for human wisdom, but with AI, getting advice has never been cheaper. That's why you have no excuse to seek a second opinion. Every time you get stuck, ask questions until you get unstuck. Ask about new approaches, new tools. Then take the good advice. Don't treat your work like a closed book exam. If asking for advice is cheating, then I'm imploring you to cheat. Now, I'm not saying this is what we should be doing in our classrooms, but I'm trying to give you a bit of a sense about what the business world, how they're looking at and using and thinking about technology. Anything you do where others will join you in bearing the consequences of your mistakes should be approached with appropriate gravity. Here again is the concept of responsibility, and human responsibility, even if you're using AI tools. All right. So what is the evolution of change? How is this going to happen in frontier firms, or firms that want to become frontier firms? There's a three-phase AI integration. Phase one is kind of like what's happening now. It's kind of one-on-one. It's employees who are using LLMs or AI as an assistant. And then the next is going to be to have AI agents join a team. And then human-led, agent-operated models. So that means that one human is going to operate or oversee or manage a number of agents. So what is this agent boss? So the agent boss is a knowledge worker who manages AI agents. This is not some complicated technological position like prompt engineer. This is a regular person. It could be a secretary. It could be an accountant. These are office jobs, not someone who is a real manager or in a serious tech position. So what are they going to do? What are they expected? Well, they have to prompt, define goals, monitor processes, handle breakdowns, evaluate results, iteratively improve workflows. So what's the agent? It's an AI-powered system that can reason, plan, and act autonomously to complete tasks or entire workflows with human oversight at key moments. Again, the same firm talks about this concept of an agent boss. It's not for managers, right? It's going to be for a lot of knowledge workers, a lot of office jobs. Limits and specialization. The idea here, though, practically is that one human cannot be the boss of too many agents. This probably have to be about domain specialization, domain knowledge. If I'm an accountant, I'm probably not going to be managing AI tools to create images or video, right? It's all going to be related to my domain and what my job is. So, I could be responsible for managing up to 5 agents, and they report back to me, or I oversee their progress. So as a customer service manager, the AI agents might be one responsible for email, writing emails, replying to emails, for chat, social media, maybe phone, even phone, customer service on phone, replying, and then self-service portals. So what's a human doing? Well, the human is going to give feedback to AI agents, make sure that they're doing it right. They make a mistake, tell them how to do it right. Reviewing what the agents are doing, and handling complex cases. So what skills do the agent bosses really need? So the skill stack looks something like this. Now you could, there's so many different ways you could make this diagram, but I think basically it looks something like this. At the lowest level, we have the cognitive. These are cognitive skills. These are human cognitive skills. Then we have technical and then managerial. So at the base, the cognitive skills, critical thinking, judgment, and evaluation. These are things that hopefully we're trying to do and instill with our students. WEF report. I like a lot of reports, whether it's academic, educational, or business. Critical thinking is problem solving. These are coming up again and again and again everywhere. All right. And then for technical, the middle skills, prompting, tool selection, agent selection, what tools for whatever tasks, and the output tuning. Now I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly because we are running out of time. So the managerial skills, is about delegating, coordinating, strategic oversight, and communication. So this pyramid kind of reflects the 21st century knowledge worker, how the knowledge worker will evolve, the skill sets that are necessary. So it's not just using AI tools, but managing them with the same skills that are actually used when leading human teams. So what are those skills? So human managerial skills. I think there are 5 basic ones. Task analysis and delegation. Strategic goal setting, coaching and development, quality control, stakeholder communication. So task analysis and delegation, break down tasks and give them to the right people. Communicate expectations, formats, deadlines. Strategic goal setting. Align tasks with a broader team or organizational goals. Coaching and development. Give feedback to improve individual and team performance. Now, quality control, to review and to verify work for accuracy, relevance, and standards. Catch errors before they become problems. Stakeholder communication. Translate work into clear insights for internal and external audiences. Internal audience might be your team members, your human teammates or team members or department. Now, it could also be people who are higher up, your managers or superiors. Ensure that the messaging is aligned, timely, and persuasive. So these skills, and managerial skills to the AI managerial skills, look something like this as a one-to-one mapping. So task analysis and delegation is task to agent mapping. So when your team is human and AI, which tasks should be done by people, which ones by machines, and which require a collaborative loop. So in this case here, if I got my report, I should be pretty clear. I know who it's for, what's the length, what are other requirements that I need to follow, and then get feedback from the AI if I need it. And perhaps this tool for another task, a reasoning agent of some sort that can do some research for me. Strategic goal setting is about prompt framing. So we all know about prompting, so I won't go too much into this. But the idea, the prompt framing, is that we should have a clear purpose, the outcome, we should know what the outcome should be, and there should be a strategic intentionality with our program or with our prompting. Coaching and development, feedback and iteration. So that's what we're doing with these AI agents or AI tools. So we don't just use the first draft. We're going to work with AI, review the outputs critically, identify what works, and prompt with clear revisions. So in a situation like this, maybe I want to get some critical feedback, get some advice from another AI that can do a good job. Quality control and risk management, editorial oversight. So the human will be the final filter in this like AI-human loop or interaction. And so the editorial oversight is still going to be extremely important. The final filter. So identifying hallucinations, bias, irrelevant content in AI outputs, and cleaning them up before use, before giving it to my team members or to my manager. So using some kind of like integrity check or some other process, and finding the right tool for that. Finally, the stakeholder communication. Human AI output framing. So with AI, your role is to shape its outputs into persuasive, accessible, stakeholder-ready narratives. How is it relevant to my boss, or my teammates, or my customer, right? Or if I'm working interdepartmentally with somebody else from another department. Okay. Implications for education. Should there even be implications for educators? I posted something a few days ago on Substack, and someone was not happy. And Zena was not happy. And so I was asking advice, in fact, from Brian Merchant, the guy who wrote the article I mentioned earlier. And I was asking, like, okay, so for educators, if there's this problem with education and students leaving education or not getting jobs, is there anything that educators should be doing? And Zena was not happy with that. So I'm curious why you think it's the role of educators to produce cogs for the machine. To follow your ideal, students would end up devoting more of their time and money than to then be able to start one run. Okay, anyway, she was not happy with the idea that educators should be trying to teach students how to use AI tools because it's all just going to the AI companies like OpenAI. All the money and all the tools and all that stuff. I think she fundamentally misses, well, she doesn't know my talk today, and she probably wouldn't want to come. But this is a good question, right? It is a good question. And a lot of educators are probably thinking, like, it's nothing to do with me, right? It's not what I'm teaching. It's not related to my content. Students need to prepare somewhere, though. So this digitaleducationcouncil.com student survey from 2024, 50% of students believe that over-reliance on AI would negatively impact their academic performance. I think Paul alluded to this a little bit earlier, and that is like, there are a lot of students actually who are very concerned about AI use. It's like taking away from their learning, right? Valid. 48% of students feel unprepared for an AI-enabled workplace. Okay. So, wrapping this up, in the next 3 to 5 years, this seems to be, like a lot of people are talking about the next 3 to 5 years as being disruptive. Demand for new skills. Skills in AI, machine learning, data analysis, digital tools, soft skills as well. Creative thinking, problem solving. Same. In fact, maybe these skills are more important than ever in a combined AI-human environment. Continuous learning. How to learn, because that's a fact of life now for all of the kids that you're teaching, going into the work world. They're going to have to learn and learn and learn and learn and never stop learning, because what they learn today will be outmoded and outdated next year. Need for adaptability and resilience. Hybrid AI work models. So if we need to work alongside AI agents, then we have to understand how to manage them and use these technologies. Changing organizational structures. Companies' organizational chart may change. The projection here is like a flatter organization chart. More staff and knowledge workers will need to take the role of leadership, whether it's within human teams or within a mix of human and AI teams. digital collaboration and remote work, it will increase opportunities, but also needs strong self-management and communication skills. Those are all human skills. Increased competition and opportunity. So with opportunity, there's also increased competition. And frontier firms and innovative employees are quickly adopting AI and looking for adaptable, tech-savvy young talent. So these are 4 big changes, I think, that are going to happen. Now, sooner or later, people not really talking too much about this in Taiwan, but it'll come here probably within that time period. And that is the end of my presentation. So, just one final word to wrap up on my last slide. So are we just training students to become cogs in the corporate machine? And, well, yes, we always have been. So otherwise, what's the alternative? Thank you very much.